Hey, howdy folks. Hope everybody's doing good out there. Sorry I've been away and haven't posted a video recently, but life gets busy, all that kind of stuff. Obviously still one of those day job kind of people, but thought I would try to post something, put together a little discussion about research materials for hunting down legends and treasure stories and myths and history and all that kind of stuff. And so I've got a couple of books I'm going to show you that are kind of harder to find, that you might nonetheless be on the lookout for as you go to your favorite used bookstore. And also going to read just a couple of passages. One sort of an interesting oddity and rather unexpected, and the other is sort of fuel for the fire to make you think that there might still be stuff out there. It's good to have historical sources to draw from, and not just stories and newspaper clippings and short things like that. So it's a little longer of a read. So you might just listen to it in the background while I discuss a little bit about what I think the implications of the material is. So hopefully I'll be posting some more action kind of stuff soon. The weather's getting better, and I've been getting out just a little bit, sort of getting warmed up and back into shape. So I'm going to try a new thing here. We'll see how you guys like it. And, if you do, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And that'll, of course, encourage me to do more. So without further ado, we'll get over to the session on books. Thanks.
All right, folks, how you doing? I happen to be a collector of books, old and obscure, on a variety of topics, and of course, treasure legends and history and myth and all that sort of stuff are very interesting. There might be a little bit of truth buried in all of the retellings in there somewhere, so I go out of my way to find, really obscure sources whenever I can. I constantly in used bookstores and stuff like that. So these are just a few of the books that I picked up. My library is pretty extensive. Of course, there's always something missing. So that's a different kind of treasure hunting, I guess, looking for the books to help you treasure hunt. So I really like to find stories that are firsthand, if at all possible, as opposed to secondhand or just sort of retellings and stuff. And there's a few sources like that out there that are pretty interesting. I guess the Golden Treasures of the San Juan by Temple H. Cornelius is pretty interesting. There's a few in there that he has firsthand knowledge of, like the burnt timber flats and stuff like that. And unless the guy's a liar or something, you probably could trust those better than some garbled newspaper thing or something. So that's a good one. I'll read you this one here in a few minutes from Desert Wife. These are people that had a trading post on the Navajo Res years ago, and there's a first-hand tale in there that's pretty interesting. And so kind of gold is where you find it sort of thing. First thing I'll read is from this book, One League to Each Wind. This is a book about surveying. So, it doesn't have treasure in the title anywhere, and it's not necessarily a treasure tale, but it's a real interesting mystery sort of a thing, real short tale. There's really good stories in here about getting caught in snowstorms and having to survive the elements and all that stuff on the Texas frontier. But you find kind of interesting stories in random places sometimes. You just read. This book, Legendary Outlaws of the West, Brad Williams, has got an interesting story in here about El Chato, a very different take on the El Chato legend from southern New Mexico, and kind of suggests a very different mountain range as the location for where things went down, and a lot more practical of one. Actually, I've got firsthand experience there, and there's good springs and cover and all that kind of stuff, good ingress and egress, and good sight lines, but you're also kind of close to town, so you can get groceries and see your girlfriend too. It's not some super remote place, so it makes a lot more sense actually along the Rio Grande there. As far as a book that's got an interesting format, if you can find it, This one by Boucher is pretty interesting, and what's cool about this is that he's got they're real short descriptions and references, so you can go look up the longer descriptions, but generally has a little map. It's got a credibility rating in here, so this one he's rated as poor credibility and stuff. And here's the references for this one. So this is a real cool format. Actually, I think the guy lived in Las Cruces, which is interesting. I lived down there for a while, and copyright 1975. So again, kind of older stuff is maybe a little closer to the source. So other things you probably want to have in your arsenal is a place names book. There's little historical anecdotes for pretty much any name you could find on a topo map within a lot of the western states. So there will be a place names in New Mexico, Arizona, etc. These are pretty good too. So let's get into the reading of the first one here. This is kind of it's real short, but kind of strange. And again, it's not so much treasure as it is just interesting. And then when I read Desert Wife, that one's a little bit more about treasure, but again, it's a first-hand account. So here we go. Capture and release of Colonel Norris's surveying party by Chief Jose Maria, a Masonic incident, 1838, George W. Tyler. Colonel James M. Norris, a Mr. Taylor, and 3 others were surveying land 3 or 4 miles northeast of the present site of Belton, sometime in the late 30s. Buffalo were numerous on the prairie. The party was working towards a hill and suddenly found themselves surrounded and made prisoners by a large body of Anadarko Indians who were hunting buffalo. The principal chief of the Indians was Jose Maria. The name of the other, second chief, is not recalled. The latter insisted on killing the entire Norris party and ordered his men to string their bows, which they did with alacrity and evident eagerness to execute the order. Jose Maria expostulated with the other chief, and they had quite a heated conversation on the question. At this moment, Mr. Taylor made a Masonic sign that was readily understood by Jose Maria, and the latter immediately stepped between Mr. Taylor and the other chief. Jose Maria could speak English, and he talked in that language a few moments with Mr. Taylor, but the other Indians did not understand what was said. Jose Maria then turned to the other chief, and they had a spirited colloquy in Indian language as to what should be done. Jose Maria evidently insisting, in opposition to the other chief, upon saving the lives of the prisoners. He made such an impression upon the Indians under the control of the other chief that they quietly, one by one, unstrung their bows. Mr. Taylor, who was a master mason, afterward asked Jose Maria where he had received the degrees of masonry, and he replied that he was made a master mason in a French lodge in Canada, and that he was of the family of the great Tecumseh, who had been killed at the Battle of Thames. The Indians then moved away, leaving the whites unharmed, and free to resume their surveying. The location of this occurrence was doubtless on Pepper's Creek, not far from Midway, about where the late Mr. Joe Miller subsequently long resided. Colonel Norris, a lawyer then residing in Caldwell, was interested in the Nancy Chance League in this locality and was there about that time, as evidenced by our land records. So, getting captured by Indians in the middle of nowhere, on the verge of death, and saved by Masonic hand signs. That's a real strange event, and but nonetheless, unless these guys are liars, that's a true tale, one that you couldn't have kind of made up, I guess. This one's a bit longer, and again, this book, Desert Wife, is about some people who ran a trading post on the Navajo Reservation, and so this is basically kind of like a biography, but this one's real interesting for a lot of reasons, and I'll kind of summarize at the end. But let's just go through it real quick, and hopefully you're still with me and interested here. So it says Guarded Gold, the Prospector. So this is one of the latter chapters, page 265. We had not seen a white man for 6 months when unexpectedly one afternoon in August 1917, one rode up to the store. An Indian called, "A white man with a pack mule is here. Come see what he wants." Even on the outside edge of the world where we were, the war was affecting what we did. We must sell cornmeal with flour even when the Indians ground their own cornmeal. I expected this man to bring some new regulations of our sales, or perhaps he was interested in hides or wool. But the first thing that caught my eye was a prospector's pick across the top of his pack. Every Indian in sight, and there were more of them than usual, looked as dumb as a blank wall. A wave of chill crept up my spine. The man leaned from his horse and held out his hand. "My name is Darrell," he said, "and I hope I can buy some feed for my horse and camp by your store tonight." I assured him he could, and that my husband would be back very soon. I showed him where to find the hay, and while he made his camp, I turned, thinking to send an Indian out in the hopes of meeting Ken and telling him to hurry. As I looked about for a messenger, I counted just 5 Navajos quirting their ponies out of sight over 5 different trails. There were several left, and calling one aside, it was Nez Chili Begay, I said, "Will they find Ken, or are they going for the Dene?" He looked blank. We were standing perhaps 20 feet from where Mr. Darrell whistled as he fed his horses. I added, "I know the old story. Are they going for say Nez?" At that, Nez Chili Begay flashed me the keenest look and said quickly, "They have gone for the Dene." "Then you ride fast and tell Ken to hurry. There must be no trouble here." He looked at me and said slowly, "There will be no trouble here." Just then Mr. Darrell came up, all frankness and goodwill. I took him inside, and it was nearing sundown. I started supper while we talked. He was from Texas. I had known he was no tenderfoot. He asked if we had been in the country long, and I said, "Oh yes, ages." "Well, this is my first trip here," he told me. "Years ago, an older brother of mine was in this country and discovered some mighty good gold ore. The Indians got him, but the story of the gold got out and has been a sort of tradition in the family ever since. One of the 2 men whom the Indians guided in to bury my brother and his partner came back to Texas years afterward and told us all about it. The Indians were really dangerous in those days. I was just a little shaver at the time, but I remember the story well. The man drew a map so we could find the place where the graves were. It seems that my brother and his partner were killed within a day's ride of the gold, but in which direction from the mine I don't know. I promised myself for years that someday I'd come up to this part of the country and look around. I felt suffocated, but tried to appear normal and hospitable. I could feel the Indians outside. I knew they would not leave. I was sure there was more coming at that very moment. Mr. Darrell was rambling on good-naturedly. "Yes, I guess the Navajos used to be pretty tricky. It was all a man's life was worth to knock around here, even 20 years ago. A man wouldn't bring a woman out to the jumping-off place like this in those times, you bet. I can see things are different now, or you just wouldn't be here at all, let alone staying here and running the store with him riding off somewhere after cattle." While I was trying to register that secure feeling for Mr. Darrell's benefit, Ken came in, and he had plenty of company, just as I expected. I introduced the 2 men, and we sat down at once to supper. It was dark outside, but from my seat at the table I could look out of the window and see a shower of sparks pouring from the smoke hole of the Camp Hogan. A few Indians sat quietly in the store where a lamp burned. I looked them over and, thinking Mr. Darrell might feel more free to talk, remarked, "None of these speak or understand English." "Yes," Mr. Darrell saw only the surface meaning of my remark. "I can see that I may have difficulty finding an interpreter," he went on to Ken. "The only direction I have to go by is the location of what is called Monumental Valley, which is about 60 miles further than we are here, I should judge. I figure you can tell me the best way to get there from here?" "I wish you'd tell my husband just what you had told me," I tried to speak carelessly. "He has been in this country a long time and knows a great deal about places and people here." Ken listened until the man was through speaking. The Indians outside were as quiet as he was for a long time. Then he said slowly, "You have the right direction for Monumental Valley. You have the outfit to stay a month and prospect for gold that you are not at all sure of finding. A day's ride in any direction from your brother's grave is a big order. You might have to make a dozen trips." "Yes, I expect it to take a lot of time, but I've prospected some in my day, and I can get an idea from the formation which direction I'd want to look over most closely. I'd like to get an early start in the morning. The Indians seem friendly. One tried to buy my pick yesterday, and he brought me all the way out here, when what I wanted was to go to Chin Lee, but he insisted that there was a short way across the mountain here. At least that is what I understood by his signs, so I came along." As I understood more clearly myself, the darkness outside became more tensely hostile. "Well," Ken began, picking his words slowly, "I'm not a prospector, but I do know these Indians a little, and I think they feel about the way they always have concerning gold seekers. They have never encouraged prospectors, as you will admit. If there's gold here, no white man will get away with it alive. If there isn't any gold, you can ride all over the reservation, but what's the use?" Mr. Darrell was quite unimpressed by Ken's seriousness. "Oh, sure, I see your viewpoint," he said tolerantly, "but you traders are not looking for a big stake. You came here to trade, and that's what you do. That's good in its way. Now, I've got no particular hard feelings against these Navajos. The ones that killed my brother are likely dead long ago. But gold's gold, you know, and from the stories that came back in the old days, that ore was so rich that the dust in the bottom of the sacks, after the Indians had thrown away the rock itself, was worth something like $50. Now, I figure if I can find that place and get one good mule load of ore out, I won't need to come back. I'm no hog. I don't care about taking the land away from the poor Indians or anything like that, but I do think, considering they got my brother like they did, that I've got a little return coming, and I think I'll try to collect." Ken's expression never changed at the stranger's apparently unintended disparagement of Indian traders. He spoke even more slowly, as if he had thoroughly made up his mind to talk. "These Indians have not forgotten what white men have looked for and found gold in Navajo country. We traders are safe only so long as we make no move to prospect. Your brother and his friend came and found gold before they were killed. Others came but did not find gold. They didn't live long enough. And I know these Indians. They mean what they say about this gold, and their actions speak louder than I can. I advise you to get off this reservation. Now. They have your prospecting tools spotted. You'll never reach gold. Mr. Darrell looked hard at Ken's serious face. Then he laughed shortly. Well, I must say you take these fellows more seriously than I do. In Texas, we don't let these things bother us. It won't hurt my feelings a lot if I have to pot one or two of these engines, but I don't expect to start anything. I'm going to jog along about my own business. As like as not, I won't see a redskin all the way. In fact, this fellow who brought me here is the only one I've seen close since I left Gallup 3 days ago, and I've been in Indian country all the way. Now, don't think I don't appreciate your warning me, but I'm going on just the same. I'll look around in the Monumental Valley country and go out south to Flagstaff. I'll drop a card from there and let you know how I make it. Ken looked the man over slowly. You're in a country you don't know, among people who are strangers to you. Better try to see their view of things. No white man will take gold from the Darrell and Andrew mine. These Indians guard it, and they will kill you without hesitation, even though you get a few of them first. Again, I advise you to think it over. Go back to Gallup. They will not touch you if you ride east. One white man, more or less, makes no difference to a Navajo. We were never popular with them anyway. They call me a friend now, but if I rode with you, they would shoot me as unhesitatingly as they will you. Better not go. Listening to all this, I wondered that Ken could talk so earnestly and so well, when he habitually talked so little. But Mr. Darrell only shook his head and repeated, Thanks for the tip. I'll go on and take a look over the land and be out by Flagstaff and away before these fellows know I'm in the country. Wait a minute, Ken interrupted him. Let's see how many of these fellows know you're in this country already. Come outside with me. They got up and went to the store door. A white moonlight showed ponies tied to every tree and half a dozen little fires in camp scattered about. The scene increased my apprehension. Mr. Darrell looked and said, They naturally come to a store. Your trade must be good. You're not even taking a risk, Ken pointed out. The result is already a certainty. After all this, I could only admire Mr. Darrell's courage and fearlessness as he left us at the door and went to his camp beside the corral fence. Good night, he said. I know you intend for all for my good. I sure do thank you for telling me, but I have not looked forward to this all my life to turn back now. I'm within 60 miles of the place. I can use a pack load of that gold dust, and I'm going after it. He went out into the still, white night. Ken stood a moment looking out and turned back into the house. During the night, I could tell by his careful breathing that he did not sleep. If he knew that I was awake, he made no sign. At dawn, when we looked out, Mr. Darrell had gone, and not a Navajo was in sight. For the 2 days after Mr. Darrell's visit, Ken did not ride. He acted as if he expected someone. I was glad somehow that I was not alone at the store. The 2 days passed, days when the Indians traded and ate canned tomatoes and crackers. About noon of the third day, a boy of 16, the son of Hosteen Nez, who had come to us for help when his father and mother were stricken with smallpox, and who often came to us for food now that they were gone, asked for crackers and tomatoes. I had a piece of meat from our own table, but he seemed almost too tired to eat. He leaned heavily on the counter, thus bringing his head almost on a level with Ken's as he stooped to lift the sack of flour. Claw and the others come to kill you, he whispered. Ken placed the flour where he could reach it easily and stooped again. The boy whispered, The older men do not know that Claw is coming. There were other Indians in the store, our friends, we thought, but the boy's caution was a warning. There were few Indians in during the afternoon, but under ordinary circumstances we'd have thought little of it. As night approached, Ken walked about the store, putting things straight. He put the guns within reach, but even as he did, he remarked, What's the use of shooting any of them? We can get as many as we have shells, but they'll get us in the end. As Ken and I passed each other and walking about, we tried to appear purposeful. We looked at each other as we passed, shrugged, and went on. At dark, we were both in the store, with the door wide open and a lamp on either end of the counter. Leaning against the shelves and facing the door, Ken waited. I got pencil and paper and sat down at the counter to write, but I could not sit still, so began putting cookies and peanuts in the bins and setting cans straight on the shelves. When the sound of hoof beats and the squeak of saddle leather reached us, we did not so much as glance at each other. There was whispering in the dark outside, then the moccasined feet on the platform and Claw and 2 disreputable strangers entered. The darkness, we knew, held other men who kept themselves beyond the light of the lamps. Claw stepped forward and put a bit of paper on the counter before Ken. The stranger rode straight, he said, not like a man who seeks his way and that does not know the trail. He looked before and behind and he made marks on the paper as you see. He looked always at the cliffs and the ledges, but he made no wrong turnings. The white stranger knew the way to gold. He made marks on the paper so others would know. He was here. He ate with you. Your friend. You are to die before you tell others. Ken's voice as he answered was low and patient, like someone who has reared a very exasperating child. Deneh, stand quietly a little while. I would talk to you before you do this thing which you plan. Let those who are outside in the dark with more guns come up near the step where they can hear my voice. Listen to me. You will not have to stay long to hear all I have to say. But first I ask any one of you to step forward here and tell us all of any time when I have ever lied to any of you. I wait. Do any come? No. Then listen again. The man you have killed is no friend of mine. I tried my best to keep him from going after the gold. Now he cannot tell where the gold is. The secret is dead again. It is safe. I never did know the place. I did not want to know the place, but I talked too long. You came here to kill me. May I offer you my own gun to do it with. Without any apparently sudden move, Ken leaned forward, took his revolver from under the counter before him, and held it towards Claw, butt first. For a breath, no one moved. The darkness outside was still, too. Claw stepped back uncertainly. Ken waited for several seconds. Here is the gun, he repeated. Let any of you who believes that I lie to you come here and take this gun. No one? Then you know you are wrong. Let this night be forgotten then, as it never had been. As if it never had been. Claw and his two supporters turned and stumbled through the door. Many feet moved from the platform. Horses were mounted hastily. I sat down weakly and listened to the galloping grow distant. Ken did not move. Suddenly I heard the hoofbeats of one horse running as I had never heard an Indian horse run. It seemed not to have stopped when a man leaped on the platform and into the store. It was Saynez. His face was as white as an Indian's face could be, and his hand was on his gun. He and Ken looked at each other, and all the tenseness went out of the Navajo's muscles. You are safe, my brother, he said calmly. I heard, when it might have been too late, that those who are fools and rascals would do. What those who were fools and rascals would do. I came quickly. I might have had a great need of a friend, but it was Claw and those like him who came. Both men laughed, and Ken told what had happened. When Ken came to the gun incident, Saynez drew his own gun, balanced it on a finger, presented it to Ken butt first, and then so quickly I saw only the end of the movement, whirled it about, so that he held the butt, and Ken faced the most deadly Indian gun on the reservation. So, you would have shot Claw, eh, my brother? Ken nodded. Again both men laughed, and Ken reached for a can of tomatoes. Claw did not want to be the first to die, Saynez said, as he took the first spoonful. There were 6 shots in your gun, 6 dead men, eh, my brother? And Claw did not bring those with him who would be the 6th. Saynez ate and laughed and went away. Days and nights passed, and not by look or word were we reminded of the strange prospector. The Indians came and traded, laughed and wheedled, but never in my life did I have so little desire to own a gold mine. So what's really cool and interesting about that is that that's an autobiographical, very detailed account of someone searching for gold in country that you'd think wouldn't have it, sandstone country, and the lengths to which those who live there, go to protect that hidden source of gold. Both the first event, and then what they did to the young Texan when he returned to follow up on his family's story. So lends a lot of credence to the idea that there are still hidden places out there that haven't been developed, where the gold's rich enough that the dust in the bottom of the sacks is even enough to yield some money. So that's the kind of stuff I like to look for too, is first-hand accounts, historical, not in a book of treasure legends or whatever so much, as just things you can find from history that kind of give you some information about how things might really be out there in the big real world. So hopefully you enjoyed those two. I'll try to maybe make some more of these with some more kind of standard stories, and maybe kind of go into if I've looked for them and what I've seen and what my assessments are of some of these things over time. And so I hope you enjoyed it, and just remember, keep looking.